a situation where nobody had died in Afghanistan for his last 18 months in office. So at least at that point in time, had they withdrawn, it would have been in a peaceful situation. But already before Biden withdrew, the terrorist groups, there are four main ones. The Taliban is the one you know the most. ISIS is there also. And there are four main large terrorist group, at times very much at odds with each other, at times working together. And the question was, how were they going to act when the U.S. left? And there were periods of time in which it looked like they might be willing to accept some kind of compromise, but maybe we should have always realized they weren't, which is the reason that Trump never made the actual decision to pull out. Biden, totally insensitive to that, just assumed that they were going to be peaceful, made those pronunciations. His government said they expected at least 1 year of quiescence after the withdrawal. Every fact on the ground disputed that. I think when the intelligence comes out, you're going to see it was contrary to that. But despite that, a very stubborn, extremely ignorant, very incompetent president who his co-secretary or co-cabinet member in the Obama administration, Gates, had announced had never made a correct foreign policy decision, should have just assumed he was going to make an incorrect decision about this, because before he was demented, he was stupid. So he decides to withdraw no matter what, picks a date right before September 11, like the end of August. And then he makes decisions that are impossible to understand. He decides to withdraw the troops in large numbers before the civilians. Now, you just say that and you stop for a moment and you say, what? You just told me it was a terrorist country surrounded by terrorists, where the question is, are they going to become violent quickly or not? And you leave the civilians unprotected. And these are not by and large, but many civilians who had cooperated with the U.S. against the terrorists, people they would be seeking to kill out of vendetta, vengeance, whatever you want to call it. Well, then, of course, you'd reverse that decision right away, thinking maybe you had just lost judgment for a short period of time. Of course, you would withdraw the civilians first, with the protection of the military, and then you would withdraw the military and whatever critical civilians had to be withdrawn, ambassador and that sort of thing, and the last to leave would be the military, because the military being there had its effect. As we said, the last 18 months of Trump, nobody died. So the military there said, at least for the point in time they're there, it's going to remain stable. Does the opposite. Every one of those souls is on Biden's conscience, including much of the military that had to be brought back. And then, of course, the terrible bombing, suicide bombing, right at the gates, where 13 American military died needlessly. The parents of some of those martyrs, of some of those heroes, of some of those people who were unnecessarily killed because of the incompetence or worse of our president, testified at how horribly they had been treated by the government. No communication by the government, no description of what happened. And then when there was a description, one that was patently false, that each one of them, or not, if not all of them, many of them stay in contact with each other, so they know the versions of what happened of the men and women in the field, and it was completely contrary to what they're being told by the Biden administration, where the real purpose is not to soothe the people who were suffering the most, the parents and families of the men and women killed, but to cover up the Biden administration. Often described as maybe worst decision in American foreign policy history. Certainly one of the most dishonorable withdrawals ever, leaving Americans behind to die. So tremendous bad will had been built up because first, lack of communication with these people who were treated as if nothing ever happened to their loved ones, and secondly, when they were given information, they were given information that was easily uh, contradicted by the testimony of others. Um, the worst of it, though, was Biden's attempt to when he met with them originally en masse in a group, his attempt to ease their pain by lying to them, by telling them that his son Bo had also died in Iraq. Well, I don't know why or how he did that, and how it is, however demented he is, and he must have been less demented back then than he is now, because it's definitely gotten worse. I don't know what would make him think that his son died in Iraq when he has said that now 3-4 times and been corrected. But then he continues to say it. Now, if he continues to say it, the first and second time he continued to say it should have been an exercise of, I think, a patriotic duty under Amendment 25 to remove him from office for being incapable of carrying out the duties of President of the United States. But no one did that. They just let him do it. And these people were extremely hurt. Do we have a cut, Ted, of that? So I thought we would play for you the part from the testimony in which the parent or parents, there was a Marine father and I believe 2 mothers. And the father, I think we're going to play the mother, but the father basically said that Biden should grow up and be a man and take responsibility for what he clearly did wrong. I mean, when your child dies, it's of course the worst thing in the world that can happen to you. But then to have that exacerbated by somebody lying to you about it to protect themselves from responsibility, lying to you about it in order to gain heroism for themselves that's attributed to lies, it has to just take the pain and like turn the knife in the wound, which is what Biden did. So shall we play? I believe this is the mother of Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, Kelly Barnett. I believe that's who it is. There's several that we have, but I can't see it from here. So we'll just, in any event, the testimony was very.
Biden, the Biden administration, Blinken, Milley, Austin, Whited, Ball. Unfortunately, there's more. That's just the ones that I'm focused on at this moment. Incompetent, cowards, evil. Some are a few of those, some are all of those. I want justice. I want accountability. Why would they just not say, oh, we made a mistake, our plan was wrong, I'm so sorry. You know, that would have been something. You know, I understand war is hell. I understand that. But no, we didn't get that. Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover, Staff Sergeant Ryan Christian Knaus, Sergeant Nicole G., Sergeant Johanny Rosario Picardo, Corporal Humberto Sanchez, Corporal Hunter Lopez, Corporal William Deegan Page, Lance Corporal David Lee Espinosa, Lance Corporal Riley J. McCullum, Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola, Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui, Lance Corporal Jared M. Schmitz, Corpsman Maxton W. Soviak. They deserve justice.
Well, they didn't receive justice. What they received instead was an unnecessary death, but in service to their country, and they are heroes. They're heroes, and they're also their death is one of the great dishonorable acts of an American president, because it will always remind us also of our way in which he made cowards of us by having us leave men and women behind, Americans who were killed thereafter, some with arms that we gave to the terrorists to do it. And then again, people that would have a similar claim on our loyalty, and those are Afghans who had worked with us at risk of their lives, protected and kept our soldiers alive, and then were abandoned to our mutual foes and slaughtered again with weapons we left behind. In addition to the inhumanity in the way in which these people have been treated since then, was the, as I said, incredible decision to withdraw civilians after the troops were withdrawn, or withdraw the troops first. The equally insane decision of leaving $85 billion worth of lethal arms behind at Bagram Air Base, not taking it out, although we had as much time as we wanted. I mean, we had months to plan it, and we could have put it off for as long as it took to take our arms out of there. But the claim made, which was equally as false as the claim that Joe's son died in Iraq in battle, is that we didn't have time to take it out. I mean, we set the timing. How Miley may have been the one who said that to us, but whoever said it to us displays arrogance for the American people, disrespect for the families, and also an incredible lack of intelligence. To say you set the time, but don't have the time to take the guns and the ammunition and the $85 billion worth of sophisticated arms out is a little, well, it's way too much. And also, I think at some point they didn't have much tactical value, these weapons. Well, they kill you, and they're en masse, and they're a heck of a lot more sophisticated than they have in the mountains. In fact, they became one of the best armed militaries in the world overnight, as well as one of the bigger arm merchants in the world, due to the contribution of Joe Biden. And then those were turned on the very people that we were supposed to protect, and now fuel the civil war that's going on. And then finally, of course, there's the absolutely unexplainable decision of abandoning an air base 400 miles from China. Still no answer given, still no questions really asked. When you consider the obscene amounts of money that the Biden family got from Red China, has to inescapably lead to the conclusion of bribery. There has to be a connection between the two things, because I don't care how stupid you are, somebody in your administration is going to stop you from giving up an air base that gives you a commanding advantage over China, evidenced by the fact that since we gave it up, we're looking for one of the best we can do is 1,200 miles away. I mean, if you get one right on the border, you take it, right? 400 miles is basically right on the border. Well, this maybe had there not been a history of completely unjust impeachments in the prior administration. I think under normal times, this would have led to an impeachment of a president. He'd been thrown out in disgrace. But the man gets obscene protection against any suggestion of the best interests of the American people, or innocent people, or decent people who suffer and die as a result of the press not doing its job and reporting about him honestly. So I told you I'm up here in New Hampshire, and President Trump was here yesterday and left quite an impression. He made it clear that he's not exactly what we would call an establishment a Republican, certainly not a rhino, and we find that most of the members of the Republican Party agree with him and don't have particular affection for the structure of the Republican Party. Well, that's always been true when you had a popular president, and no one can dispute that Trump is very popular among the Republican base. Reagan was always more popular than the Republican Party, and even Bush, when he had very, very high favorability, was more popular than the Republican Party. I'd say Obama probably more than the Democratic Party. Charismatic presidents have that effect. And then those in the party, I mean, a lot of them, the rhino types, Republicans in name only, annoy the base because on key fundamental issues, they're constantly caving in to Democrats and compromising because on base issues, one wonders if they agree. You know, people like Romney and I guess there's really a small number. But so that theme for Republicans is a pretty powerful one, and he used it here in New Hampshire, where he has a commanding lead. In fact, he wins this primary even if he's convicted. He wins it even if he's in prison.
That's a
Well, yeah, that is extraordinary. But it isn't really, because you really have to be basically of minimum intelligence to realize that he's being unjustly prosecuted. If you can't figure it out now, maybe the fourth indictment will tell you that in Georgia, which will just be a rehash of what he's been indicted for, largely anyway, with a couple of silly claims of their own, like the Attorney General of Atlanta, who was very disturbed by that telephone call. Oh gosh, was he so disturbed? Meanwhile, he had hidden in his desk, and only came out a year later, a big report about all the irregularities and things that cast doubt on the election, which he got about 5 days after the election was over. Not only did he never investigate it, he did like Barr did with the hard drive, covered it up. And then a lot of these cases rest on, oh, well, people told him that he had lost. Barr was the main one, and his little group of thieves, and they're the ones who unexplainably covered up the hard drive, covered up incriminating evidence, covered up exculpatory evidence that would have rendered useless the impeachment trial, because it would have given the defense that there was indeed a very, very serious crime that was committed by the Bidens, or at least there are allegations of it, and therefore it had to be investigated by somebody, and it would have given the first and most important defense to Trump. There's a writer in the Wall Street Journal, and I'm not sure I understand. I really don't think I understand this. So I'm going to ask for your help. Let me find the article. And before that, let me point out another one of the things that you're not going to hear, because I tried to spend time on that because you're just not going to hear it anywhere else. Let's just bring to your attention a very, very significant gift of Biden to Putin, and that's deciding that he's going to put aside 1 million acres of land in the West under the Antiquities Act of 1906. And this is land that has some of the richest uranium deposits in the world, which is critical to us for our nuclear program. But we're not going to use that. We're going to give it to the Native Americans, and instead we are going to increase our 95% reliance on the rest of the world for this critical mineral. And who do we rely on? Kazakhstan, Canada, Russia, and Australia. Well, I mean, you've got two there that are not exactly reliable, and one that's not reliable at all. And Russia is the third biggest source. Well, Russia becomes the biggest source. Putin makes more money. He gets more money to kill Ukrainians. And one wonders if we're not playing both sides against the middle in Russia. I mean, that money is being used to kill Ukrainians, and we're giving the Ukrainians, well, I think we are, we're giving Ukrainians guns usually a year late to kill Russians, and we're giving them money that we hope gets to the field. It also does result also in a black market that unscrupulous or corrupt members of the Ukrainian regime use to make money on the side. Hard to believe that all of a sudden, with the war, Ukraine became even minimally honest. I mean, it's one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and one of the areas in which corruption flourishes among the population is war. It's unfortunate, but that's something that they can take advantage of. So I think Putin sends his thanks, as the Wall Street Journal points out, and now it will the U.S. will be more dependent on it for a critical mineral, and he'll make more money. Good for Putin. I thought they were against Putin. Now it is true that Trumpy has pointed out that that Biden has gotten money from Russia. You know, they played out that whole completely false Russian collusion thing. Amazing that they did that when Biden is standing there knowing he got minimum 3.5 million from a very high level Chinese communist and friend of Putin's, Madame Budarina, who was the mayor's wife of Moscow and the richest woman and most powerful woman in Russia. That has kept her off all lists of people with sanctions, including people of much less significance than her. But I imagine that was just a small part of the quid pro quo for the $3.5 million bribe. But I mean, all these countries do have something on him. So when you look at the Ukraine situation, he's between two countries that could easily compromise him, because they all have the information that is now coming out from the Congress, the information that I put out 2-3 years ago, and I would guarantee more than that information. It leaves us in questioning how can we possibly be so lackadaisical in pursuing this? This is not like we have forever. I mean, as he sits there, if it's correct that he got all this money from our enemies, and we do know he's making decisions that are irrationally rendered and in many cases, if not all, very, very damaging to the national security of the United States, like giving up Bagram. And then not only that, very favorable to these governments that are enemies of ours, or declare themselves in many ways enemies of ours. And we live with the coincidence that he got millions from governments that he's favoring, and with decisions that hurt the United States. So where's our love for our country? Where does the part of being a senator or a congressman or member of the cabinet and protecting and the American people, where does that come in? Nowhere. Not if you can leave a man giving away an airbase that is of great advantage to China, great disadvantage to the United States, and keeping millions and millions from the of dollars from the red Chinese for considerations that we only know part of, but in many cases sufficiently fill out the final blank in the crime of bribery. I don't know. Well, the United States, as you know, has a absolutely horrendous border problem. We have a border problem to the extent that we don't have a border in the southern part of the United States. And not having a border is in many, many ways like not having a country, because we have no even minimal control over who's here. We don't check at all anymore. So when you see these migrants and the communists and those who act like communists but maybe don't know they are, who right now run much of the Democratic Party and the cities in America that are ripping apart, largely because of their left-wing Marx-like policies, inspired a lot by Black Lives Matter, which is an avowed Marxist group. When they talk about this, it's, the borders should be open. Everybody should be let in, because remember, their goal is one world. Their goal is to eliminate the United States of America. Now, don't look at me like I'm a conspiracy theorist. George Soros has written that. Klaus Schwab has written that. And many followers of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic or Communist Forum have, including Americans, have avowed that it would be much better to have one world than the United States government. After all, United States nationalism is very evil. I don't know what's evil about it. It's just been the most successful, the most beneficent, and the kindest government in the history of the world, even with significant human flaws. It's also been the government with the highest human achievement. But the second part they leave out because they are desirous of ending America and replacing it with the dream, the Marxist dream of one world with one set of rules that are not voted on or agreed on or emerge from the consent of the government, but are dictated by the socialist, communist leadership, or better called dictatorship. Makes for a much more efficient society. So that has led to an invasion of the United States. In numbers, more illegal immigrants. And to leave out the word illegal out of sensitivity to the illegal immigrants, but with total disregard for the lives and safety of Americans by engaging in euphemistic false descriptions is totally evidence of the fact that you don't give one damn about the United States. In your objection to putting America first, you're putting it last. So I will describe them as what they are. They are the cartel immigrants, because the vast majority of them are vetted by the Mexican cartels, and almost none of them really vetted by the U.S. government. In fact, we have multiple scenes of U.S. Border officials now not only not stopping them from coming in, but aiding them coming in illegally, helping them get across the river, helping them get across borders. And of course, the only prevention of people from getting across is done on the other side by the cartels that have established not 100% effective, but more effective than we ever had, a control system about who to let in and what to exact from them as tribute or as a toll for coming into the United States, which could be cash. It could be their child. It could be somebody else's child that they stole. It could be having to carry drugs or arms for them. It could be putting them among their group members of the Mexican cartels, MS-13, other illegal organizations from countries all around the world, or terrorists with whom they have been working for 15 to 20 years, ISIS in particular. Now, this had remained a problem that was a disaster for a few states, and particularly the left-wing northeastern and midwestern states lived in their embrace of sanctuary cities, that everybody that wanted to, who, first of all, they shouldn't be called illegal, even though they were, and they were definitely welcome in whatever numbers they wanted to come in New York and in Boston and in Chicago and in Philadelphia and in all of the left-wing cities, all of which are undergoing, or at least some of which are undergoing, record murder problems and other crime problems. But unlimited numbers could be allowed in, no restriction on it, and they wouldn't cooperate with the federal government. They'd obstruct federal law and not let the federal government know the illegals were there. First among equals was the city of New York with its new mayor, Adams, who was a big supporter of sanctuary city, the biggest and the loudest in the country. From the moment he came into office, talked about people coming to New York in large numbers, borrowed a lot of the language of his fearless leader, Biden, who, upon being nominated by the Democratic Party, told them to get ready to surge into America. And they listened to him, and they came in numbers 3 and 4 times any other American president. And in numbers that, and also not just numbers, but we virtually gave up the practice of vetting, even though COVID was going on. And we sent these people all over the United States, many of them not tested for COVID, while we tortured Americans about staying in, wearing masks, lost their jobs as a result, getting vaccines. We took away their income as a result of that. We tried to take away their children. Don't know if we put some of them in prison. We may have. But we let the immigrants go all over the country, the illegal immigrants go all over the country. Some of them have a fig leaf of legitimacy by calling themselves refugees or asylees. But in almost every case, it's proven to be untrue when it finally gets to trial, where most of them don't come to trial. See, what happens is they come in, they'd be scheduled for deportation if they come across the border illegally. But then they say the magic words, we're afraid to go back because we'll be persecuted. If they say those words, we can't just hold a hearing immediately. We schedule it. Now you're going to fall out of your seat. We schedule it for 3 years later, 4 years later, 5 years later. And then we let you go. And then what do you think happens? You don't come back. And you just accomplished illegal entry and at least permanent residence to the extent you're a semi-fugitive in the United States. And then if you go to these sanctuary cities, you're treated the same as a citizen. In fact, in New York, and this is why they want to go to New York so much. In New York, the city council has voted to give the non-citizens a right to vote. Sounds contradictory to being a nation, doesn't it? Yep. Sound like we're trying to wipe out American nationalism? Sure we are, on purpose. Where do we learn that? Karl Marx. You have any disagreement with me that we're becoming a communist country? Well, Mayor Adams had the biggest bullhorn. Now he's gotten the most people, and he's complaining and yelling like a stuffed pig, running all over the place, yelling and screaming that Biden should give him the money for it, that it's Biden's fault. Well, it is Biden's fault. You are right about that, Adams. But the second thing you're not pointing out is your fault, that you're getting more people than anybody else because you ask longer, harder, and louder for them than anybody else. And now you think we're going to forget that. But of course we can't, because you yelled it and screamed it so much, it's still in our ears. And you're still doing things like telling them that you're going to get them jobs. And a study that was done shows that by far they prefer coming to New York. So when they're asked where they want to go, even to the extent that the Border Patrol or immigration has contact with them, we want to go to New York. That guy there really wants us. He's going to do all kinds of things for us. And apparently, even the illegal immigrants seem to like it. Some guy was interviewed the other day from Venezuela saying it's fabulous. He's at the McCarran Center. Now, the McCarran Park used to be a place that kids played soccer and baseball and football. Kids have been thrown out. A lot of their leagues suspended for the summer, so that all these cartel-selected immigrants who are illegal can have places to live. The McCarran one is so darn good that this guy that was being interviewed left his family behind and went to live there because he gets 3 square meals a day. He gets the Venezuelan food that he prefers. He says the food is very, very good. It also has places for him to relax and read, and also a lovely pool. Oh, yes. So then he went, and then he goes on certain days and brings his wife and children who live somewhere else so they can enjoy the pool. It sounds like a family on vacation. And during the whole interview with him, he never mentions anything about political persecution. He just talks about how he had heard it was much better in the U.S. Well, it sure is if you got a pool. All of them are treated better than our own homeless people. And disgrace of disgraces, Mr. Adams, they're treated better than our veterans. And then you put on the two-faced thing of yelling at Biden for not giving you the money for it. Why don't you think about that when you said we were a sanctuary city and anybody could come here, can come here, that will take as many as we can? Well, we've got more than we can. And we have, as you pointed out, a fiscal crisis about ready to sink the city. You are the sole architect of it. Because what you could have done is you could have, from the day you came into office, decided that you reversed sanctuary city, that if it did have a place, it had a place when the immigration levels were much lower, where it did still involve cooperation with people who are criminals. And now at this stage that we're at, we can't afford it, and make it a place that illegals don't want to come to, because something like the law is going to be enforced. And you did just the opposite, and now you're trying to find somebody to blame for it. Well, aside from Biden, there's only one other person left, and it's you. And this is not something that even the irresponsible, criminal-loving, your fellow progressive Democrats, even they have avoided exacerbating for their cities the immigrant problem. You're the one who's done that. So I don't know how we get around that, but we're going to have to. So I thought it'd be a good time if you could get me some water. I think you see them behind me here. I found a nice place to put them. My Balance of Nature travel, my travel ones. Now, I would normally come just with this, because I like to save space, but I had to bring all my radio equipment. So I thought I'd bring the biggies too, right there. So you get, if you go to balanceofnature.com, code Rudy, you get these here for 35% off. Wow, that is pretty good. So fruits, this takes care of the fruits that you don't have, you don't get. Now, like today, I was rushing because I drove up here and didn't have time for too many fruits. I took 4 of these pills at 5:30 in the morning. And now we've got 2. That's the veggie one. Here, let's use the cute little ones here. Veggies. Here you go. Veggies. And fruit. Very nice. It'll give me energy for the second part of the show.
So, of course, Balance of Nature, proud sponsors of the program. Visit balanceofnature.com. Use that promo code Rudy. This is a product you'll want to try. Of course, you see how much energy the mayor has each and every day. This is a product he's been taking regularly. And
I've been taking it for quite some time,
well before we were sponsored. And that's part of the reason the mayor part
of the reason I
speak for this product.
Asked to do this, because I like to I like to use as sponsors things that I believe in and things that I can really get into in explaining the value of to you. And this is something I have great experience with and just want to share it with you. That's balanceofnature.com, code Rudy. 35% off the big ones and $25 off the travel size. So put that order in right now, give it a try, and let me know what you think. We should see what kind of telephone calls we have at 6. Let me make sure I have the number right here. Here it is. 646-5713-5177. That's 646-5713-5177. So there's an article in the Wall Street Journal that I don't know. I'm having a hard time of where this guy comes up with this. His name is Holman W. Jenkins Jr.
What a name.
Holman W. Jenkins Jr. What a name. He is, I think, well, you're not going to like the fact that it seems like he's a professional anti-Trumper.
Well, we don't like that.
He writes relatively short columns, which is good. But this one here is somehow, this is completely contrary to every fact known and available. And that is that Trump's claim, or that Biden's claim to have arranged the firing of prosecutor Viktor Shokin with an ultimatum to President Petro Poroshenko was lost just another Joe tall tale. Now, this is what he admitted to when he made that confession in front of a group of self-important members of the Atlantic Council or the Foreign Policy, where he just straight out created a situation positing a bribe, and these reflexive morons just clapped for it. And he said, well, this was untrue. Well, it is true that it was a dramatized version of what actually happened. It's like a movie version of something that happened over a 2-week period. Now, Mr. Shokin's dismissal came months later at the behest of several Western governments. That is completely nuts, Mr. Holman W. Jenkins Jr. And not only that, you haven't even taken the time to listen to tape recordings, have you, of Poroshenko calling Biden back and explaining that that he got Poroshenko out and that there was no corruption, but he got him out anyway. And then Biden went on to explain it with a lie that Shokin was corrupt, which is contradicted by his tape recorded conversation with Poroshenko. If you had the discipline of a well-educated man, you would have noted that that your other statement that Shokin kept a lid on the long-running investigation was also easily contradicted by a set of facts that a lazy scholar would have easily picked up. Let me give you the chronology, which is easily found in a number of my podcasts, columns by John Solomon, programs still available done by Hannity and others. On February the 1st or 2nd, or I think over that period, it was a 2-day period, under the leadership of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, a very massive action was taken against the company Barisma that he was keeping a lid on, which happens to be false, what you wrote here, that he was keeping a lid on, because he served, and it was publicly noted, an arrest warrant against the company of Barisma, which shut it down. The owner of the company, a notorious organized criminal and Ukrainian crooked oligarch who had fled, named Mykola Zlochevsky, had several years earlier employed for this mission Vice President Biden to protect the company and get it back should the government ever seize it. He selected Vice President Biden because Vice President Biden was named the point man for Ukraine by President Obama and had the power to fund them or not. And they had no money. And Mykola Zlochevsky may have been crooked, may have been suspected of murder, may have been an organized criminal, but he wasn't dumb. So he figured the best guy for me to get is Joe Biden. He's going to have more power than the president of Ukraine, who hates me. And when this happened, he went into immediate action. Now, if you just pay attention to what's out there just a little bit, get some kid to do the research for you, Holman. First and second is the arrest. Between that date and 11 days later, Poroshenko and Biden have 4 lengthy conversations on the telephone. Snippets of their conversation have been leaked. The other part of their conversations has been in large part related by the testimony of Viktor Shokin, because Poroshenko, the president, was giving his version of the conversation as a running commentary to Shokin, and Shokin has testified. But you haven't bothered to read it. And within a day of the first conversation, now, earlier in December, Joe had raised the question of slowing down on Barisma and maybe getting rid of Shokin. Between December and February 1st, nothing happened. But on February 1st, something, and Poroshenko was sort of like putting him off. Yeah, okay. And he was talking to Shokin, trying to get Shokin to slow down. And then all of a sudden, on the 1st of February, he gets surprised by this very dramatic action against Barisma. And it's called an arrest warrant, and it has the effect in Ukraine, unlike an arrest warrant in America against a company, of shutting it down. The guy's worst nightmare had taken place, but he had bought assurance. That was the bribery of Biden. Then you see the 4 conversations. And then if you follow Shokin's testimony, he agrees to leave approximately mid-February. That's 2 weeks, Holman. Not a long-running, they kept a lid on the long-running investigation and the eventual removal of him. They didn't keep any lid on it. They went ahead with it right away. Now, here's what did happen that you don't know because you didn't do the research. They had to hold off publicly announcing it because now they had to select somebody who'd fix the case for them. And very tellingly, Poroshenko made it a deliberative process with Biden and wanted Biden's approval of the new prosecutor general. And there are telephone conversations about that, a transcript of which is available for you, Holman, if you ever did any research. And in those conversations, he and Poroshenko agreed on Lutsenko. Problem. Lutsenko's not a lawyer. The law of Ukraine says you have to be a lawyer. They had to get an exception. They did. That's what the delay was about. There was no foreign governments that came in. That was a lie made up for fools. Not only that, the tape recording of the conversation with Poroshenko makes that clear. Why do you write things like this just because you hate you? You're better than that. I've read lots of your columns and agreed with it. And I'm sorry to be so sarcastic, but this is a terrible thing you did here. This is a terrible thing just because you hate Trump. None of this is true. A lot of it is if not all of it, is contradicted by public records and tape recordings. February 1st, raid on Barisma by Shokin, which shows that he wasn't going easy on the company and that he wasn't corrupt. He was going after a crooked company. Refusal to back off in order to kill the case against, which they do, they have to get rid of Shokin. And they do. If you pay attention to both the record of conversations, the snippets of the conversations that have been leaked with tape recordings, and the testimony of Shokin and people who corroborate him, he was gone within 2 to 2.5 weeks. But he had to hold on so that Lutsenko, not being a lawyer, could be approved. And there's also a conversation in which Biden, the vice president of the United States, approves the new prosecutor general of Ukraine. And you explain when a vice president of a foreign country gets to approve essentially the attorney general of another country, unless he's got a great interest in who that attorney general is, namely the one who's going to drop the case against $1 billion company that is paying him off, as well as a number of others. Okay. Ted?
Yes, sir.
When the Women's World Cup came to an end and the U.S. played Sweden, I want you to honestly tell me who you've rooted for.
All right. I rooted for the USA. I have to root for Team USA, despite the un-American comments and just the ridiculous nature of the players on this team. I did root for Team America, right? I can't look.
Well, I didn't root for
You know how it is with sports, Mayor.
I didn't root for anybody.
Oh.
I didn't root for anybody because I will not root for soccer until they get rid of soccer time. I think it's the most ridiculous damn thing that I've ever heard in my whole life. You say there's extra time to play the game, but you don't tell them how much. I think it's ridiculous and it's silly. I think the players, the professional players, are a bunch of drama queens who are even more spoiled than most American athletes. And I think the way they fake injuries is pure. The game becomes like wrestling rather than boxing. It's a phony game. And finally, I couldn't root for the USA team because they shouldn't be the USA team. They don't love my country and they embarrass my country. And I think the team should have been dissolved when they refused to pay proper respect to the national anthem of the greatest country on earth. I mean, the greatest country on earth is supporting them, taking care of them, sending them there. They're not free agents. They want to go get free agents. Go get your own damn soccer team. And I'll tell you one thing I rooted for, her missing the goal.
She definitely
missed God.
it.
That was God acting, because she's going to have to, that traitor's going to have to live with it for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
She's going to have to live with that. And maybe it'll remind her as she gets older what a traitor she was to her country when she had a chance to give her country appropriate honor and credit among the other countries of the world. I mean, this country, she's complaining about rights in America. And, whatever America is, it's the best.
Who else had soccer before we did, right? Women's soccer. Who else pushed for women's soccer? I'm sure there were some places in Europe and elsewhere, but for the most part, we were women's soccer in America has been the best in the world for decades because of the opportunity women and girls have in this country compared to a majority of the world.
Opportunity she was given to not have to work so she could play a game as an adult. I mean, she was given an opportunity so that she can play games all her life.
Yeah, for big money.
A lot of people have
on
to
an international
stage.
A
lot of women and men have to work their backsides off to make 1/10 of what she has, and she's not getting paid by a company. She's getting paid by a country, and she's dishonoring that country.
It's unfortunate, and a sad part is just the number of young people, right, Mayor, who look up to athletes. Look, I'm 32. I'm not. It's some athlete's not going to change my mind.
Retired now as a loser.
She will go down as, that will be that'll be a historic moment in USA women's soccer, kind of like the missed field goals for the Bills kicker and some of these other athletes.
But he wasn't a traitor.
Exactly.
I feel sorry for him, even though I'm a Giant fan. Yeah. He's a guy that happens to anybody. I'd feel sorry for her if she wasn't a traitor.
She'll be remembered for that moment, though.
Well, she should be. It's great. It's a great moral lesson. And I think, I don't really believe it's God. I don't think God has the time to get involved in things like this. But it's as a matter of literary license, it is interesting to see that. That was one shitty kick. I mean, she kicked it right at her.
And I'm not a big soccer person. Neither of us. We're not big soccer people.
You and I might have been able to stop that goal.
Apparently, that was close to an automatic goal as you can get in the game of soccer. I'm not.
Yeah, when she was standing there and you saw that big goal there and the little girl on the other side, you say to yourself, I don't know. I think my kid could make that goal. Andrew was a pretty good soccer player. I couldn't have because I never played soccer.
Andrew was quite the athlete.
Andrew was a good soccer player. And that's why he became a
That's why he kicked in
place
football.
kicker and had the record for the most points in New Jersey Catholic high school history until about
Fun
5 years
fact:
ago.
Andrew Giuliani, the leading point
Scorer
by
kicking.
by kicking for the Catholic League in New
It may have
Jersey.
been the
Wow.
entire state or just the Catholic.
Now, was it just the kickers or was it points?
Points.
Not just kickers for all.
Yeah, points,
right.
Points.
Yeah, because kickers often lead.
Yeah, he may have caught
lead a league in points.
Right. Well, I in 2022, I said he was the most ineffective governor in America. He wasn't my governor. He was the one next to us, Murphy. Look at that dumb smile. Now he's at war with the parents of New Jersey, and he wants to basically he wants to basically get rid of the policy that requires the school to notify parents if their children want to change their gender. He wants to get rid of the policy that would require the school to notify parents if their children formally want to change their gender. Three districts want to put in policies that require the school to notify parents if their children formally wanted to change their gender. In other words, the schools now have a policy, which comes from his Department of Education. This dopey-looking guy right here, Murphy, his name is. This is the one who actually, I think, killed more old people in nursing homes than Cuomo, and actually was warned more clearly than Cuomo. Maybe he didn't understand. He has a little bit of that Biden look, doesn't he? A little Biden.
It certainly does.
But I mean, so nobody bothered to make a law out of any of this, but there's a policy or guideline of the state which says, quote, there is no affirmative duty for any school district personnel to notify a student's parent or guardian of the student's gender identity or expression. If you are in New Jersey, did you know that policy exists in the state? That the state has no duty to tell you that your child wants to mutilate himself or herself, and you don't have to be told before they're 18? When in fact, you'd have to be told, and it's probably even illegal for them to get a tattoo. And since there's no law, there's just a policy. Three districts want to put in a policy, and it says that, and this doesn't really violate the guideline, does it? The guideline said there's no duty for any school district personnel to notify. That doesn't mean they can't notify if they want to. So these three districts want to notify. Murphy wants to block them. Who the hell is he representing? Representing the people of New Jersey? Or is he representing the well-heeled gender change industry, of which the Attorney General of the United States, son-in-law, is making millions? Did you know that? Did you know that Garland's son-in-law runs one of the biggest education, private, for-profit, multi-million-dollar groups that take contracts from schools and come in and prep your kids to change their gender? Huh? And the more that do, the more money he makes. You think that might have a connection with Garland throwing around words like terrorist, referring to parents that might object to something like that? You think this whole administration is corrupt? Think I'm exaggerating? Think it's all about the money for the Bidenistas? Sure not about the best interests of the U.S. Less than 48 hours after the Middletown vote, this is where the parents voted to be notified if somebody's going to mutilate their kids. State Attorney General Matthew Platkin filed lawsuits against the district, outing these students against their will poses serious mental health risks. Not telling their parents doesn't? Do you know that the United States Charter of Human Rights makes parent guardianship of minor children a human right? This is horrendous. This is horrendous, and boy, oh boy, this is going to be your second term contribution. Your first term was you killed a disproportionate number of elderly people. Your second term is you're going to let kids mutilate themselves without telling their parents, and these kids are going to ultimately, a disproportionate number will commit suicide on the other end of it, because more people who change commit suicide than people who don't, as far as the statistics that I've seen show. So we have a call.
That's right, Mayor. We're going to take our first call.
From?
We're going to connect with our good friend. We have
Almost my entire life.
Are you reading the comments?
So go ahead.
When we work on this, yeah.
And we will
Yeah, we'll have to come back to calls.
we will focus on the election now that we're here in New Hampshire. And the interesting battle here in New Hampshire is going to be, unless, I mean, it's still a while, right? So we can't say it's been feeling for the last 2 months like we're on the eve of it. The excitement level is so high. At an earlier stage than I remember in past New Hampshire primaries. And that's without a real Democratic primary, because Biden isn't participating. He has decided that no matter what the rules are, I mean, it's typical of a president who has trashed the Constitution and laws of the United States. So he's going to have the first one in South Carolina, largely because he thinks he can win that one. He probably is afraid that Kennedy could beat him here. But in any event, the Republican primary is turning out to be very interesting. And although it isn't hotly contested for the top spot, it's very hotly contested for the number 2 spot. There are some polls in which Ramaswamy is either even with or may possibly have moved ahead of DeSantis, who is rebooting his campaign. But he's been rebooting it for about 5 weeks. Guess it must be a very hard boot to put on. He changed campaign managers, which was like just shuffling. I don't want to say that the chairs on the deck of the Titanic, but it was shuffling the chairs on the deck of some kind of ship, because one was like number 2, now it's number 1, and number 1 becomes number 2. And there doesn't seem to be any change in the message that he puts out.
Trying to fix it.
And the message is really not terribly substantive. It's, I could beat Biden and Trump can't. And Trump's not a good person, really. He wasn't as good a president as you think. That's his message. As far as his positions are concerned, he doesn't have position papers. They're hard to find, at least on his website. I remember we used to have more positions, I think, than we had votes. He's certainly not a Ramaswamy. He's not a guy interested in policy and issues. The one issue that he did get involved in, he was for before he was against, and that's Ukraine, where to suck up to Tucker Carlson, he was very anti-Ukraine, aggressively anti-Ukraine, more than any Republican or Democratic candidate, even more than Kennedy or Trump, or who I don't consider anti-Ukraine. I consider them pro-American. But he was anti-Ukraine. And then he got real blowback, and he became now very pro-Ukraine, and now he doesn't talk about it. So he was for it before he was against it, before he became neutral. Not a good sign for a guy who has no foreign policy experience and is trying to show us how decisive he's going to be. Sounds like John Kerry, huh? For it, against it, and then don't talk about it.
All right. We're going to give this another shot, Mayor.
Which
Lou,
is maybe why he's thinking.
Lou, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Mayor, when you put those on, let me know
Yeah,
if
but
you
this
can
one is
hear
tricky.
Lou.
This one here is tricky. You
Okay.
got to do all kinds of strange things with it, like this. All right. Tell Lou to talk. All right. Lou,
Yes, sir.
what's up?
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Louis from Orange County, California. Originally from Brooklyn, East New York.
Wow.
I
Well,
did
that's a
went
big
to-
that's a big change. So what's
Yeah,
up?
well, how critical is the statute of limitations with the Biden findings, the bank records, and et cetera?
Well, it won't be, because it seems to me it's an ongoing fraud. Because they've got them, as far as I can tell, and this is alleged. Now, this isn't proven. Well, I guess none of it's proven, but a lot of it is a matter of documents that I've read. So I'm pretty clear on it. This I've been told, but by numerous sources, they still have a lot of money in foreign bank accounts. Now that fraud hasn't been completed yet, so the statute doesn't run. I mean, it's an ongoing RICO conspiracy. Their racketeering enterprise, as far as I can tell, exists to this very day. I don't think they've distributed all of the resources of it.
I mean, shouldn't the clock start when it's discovered?
Some frauds it does, yes. It's going to depend on the nature of the fraud and how much they concealed it. And they've done a very, very good job of concealing it. Remember, Zelensky said, not Zelensky, Zlochevsky, the guy who owns Barisma, who paid the $10 million bribe. Remember the reliable FBI confidential source said, Zlochevsky said, we've hid it so well, it's going to take 100 years to find. What he means by that is they've laundered it and put it in offshore accounts. So it hasn't been, I think it's going to be much easier to get around the statute than, for example, the clear violation of the statute of limitations in New York when you go ahead and prosecute something that took place 15 years ago against Trump.
Look at the Trump thing with the gal.
Yeah. Oh, the other one's
30
like
years ago.
And then there's the 30-year one too. I'm talking about the one that's 15 years. Well, okay. I mean, a lot of Trump's things are beyond the statute. But but Trump it doesn't matter with Trump, because the laws don't apply to Trump. There's an exception that we don't know about in the Constitution that says that you don't apply the Constitution to Trump. He doesn't have a right of free speech. He doesn't have a right to counsel, because you're allowed to torture his counsel and discourage them from representing him. You're allowed to raid their offices. Trump is in a special category, like Stalin used to do to people, or Hitler, or if you were his enemy, if you were their enemy, they would prosecute you for nothing. I mean, this is the first time an American presidential candidate has been prosecuted by his opponent. And it's a very sad desecration of our great nation to do that. And it's on flimsy. Anybody that wants to say these aren't flimsy charges is just being a fool. Many of them, the first one, the Bragg case, doesn't even allege a crime properly because it never identifies the underlying crime that he theoretically committed by this accounting violation. And the last one, if that isn't a violation of free speech, we don't have free speech. Political speech is the most protected speech we have. There are opinions of the Supreme Court up and down saying that. That's like each page violates the First Amendment.
Thank you, Lou.
Lou, thank you.
And now let's go to our friend Julie in the great state of Washington. Julie, you're on with the mayor.
Julie, we haven't heard from you in a while.
Well, hello there. How are you, Rudy?
Good. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there.
Well, you hang in there. We're going to come through this together.
I hope so, Rudy. This has been going on such a long time. You know, they keep forgetting that the migrants have been flying in the middle of the night since he opened that border.
Yeah, isn't that true? Yeah, that was he got caught. He got caught here last year in both in New Jersey and in Westchester, New York. They went on, and finally, in one case, they got pictures of him flying these airplanes into Westchester Airport and then into Newark.
I know.
And that's before it became a big thing, you know, with when they decided to send them to the cities.
Right, they were flying them in back when that Afghanistan debacle happened.
100%, and they sent a lot of those people here unvetted.
Yes, they did. They've been doing it from day one, and I don't know if you've seen the footage on the Darien Gap. There is so much garbage stacked 13 feet high in the jungles of all the people that have been coming through daily since this border crisis began. And there's footage of it that should come out one of these days. I don't know if you've heard about that, but you might ask.
Yeah, we will look. We'll go look at it. We'll go look for it right after the show. And thank you, Julie. How are you? And how are things in in Washington?
Well, you know, where I am, it's just, I just noticed, you know, people here when I go to the store, like if I go to Walmart, for example, I don't like going there that often, but you know, it's not like the big, huge cities.
Good.
But I listen every day to all of your shows and WABC every day, and listen to Rita and Dominic, and you know, a lot.
You listen to Rita. I had dinner with Rita and her husband last night before my show.
I know you did.
Yeah, we had a great time. She's got quite a career. She's got quite a career. She began in California.
Of course, you're my favorite.
Oh, you're just saying that. You're my favorite too, Julie. You keep in touch with us, okay? I just think it's cool that you're all the way on the other side of the country. And
I know.
So you call us anytime you want, okay?
Rudy.
Yep.
Rudy, I was born in upstate New York.
Where?
In Plattsburgh.
In Plattsburgh. Wow, that's right. That's right near the border, right?
Way up north.
Yeah, you know, they're beginning to have illegal entries there now too.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
That used to be. I once actually, as a law clerk on a drug case that involved massive amounts of heroin coming across the border there from Canada. It was during the days of the French Connection. They usually came in through New Orleans, and but they switched it around to bring it in through Montreal. And then they met these mafia guys from Brooklyn, met with the Sicilian guys and French people who were helping them at a big motel on the Thruway. Oh, gosh, They must have done about 2 years of this before the DEA caught them. I remember that case as if it was yesterday. I was very, very young. I was just out of law school. I was a law clerk, and we went up to Utica, New York to try that case. Wow.
Oh,
Well, Plattsburgh is great. I like Plattsburgh. I was up there a couple of times with the mayor of Plattsburgh when I was mayor. I was up there when I was running.
is that right?
Yeah. But you're in a lot warmer place now, although you have, in the part of Washington you're in, you have 4 seasons, right?
Yes, it doesn't get we don't get, some years we get snow, some years we don't. And, we get the rainy season. It rains a lot here.
But it's real pretty. Well, thank you very much,
very,
Julie.
very,
You call us again now, all right?
very
Please keep in touch. We want to hear from you. She's always got an interesting question or observation. Now, I didn't know that she was originally from Plattsburgh. That's quite a switch. I mean, that's going right across the country, right across the globe. That's going right across the continental United States. Wow.
That's right, Mayor. And we have listeners across the country and around the world. So give us a call and comment below on where you're tuning in from. Let us know right now in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? Let us know the state and let us know the country, because we have viewers all over the country. Well, Mayor, we're well into soccer time, as you know. On another busy evening.
There's a guy voting. Man, we asked people to tell us their tickets that they like. They have Trump Vivek. There are a couple of Trump Viveks. Trump and Flynn, 100% with Rudy. Let's see what else we have here.
Well, you're going to start getting a lot of comments now on locations.
This guy McFarland wants to know, I'd like to be able to go online and see who I voted for. Would you forget? I don't know if we can do that. If we can tell him who he voted for, we may, I don't know if we link up well, we'll see if we can find out for you. Rudy, America's best mayor and outstanding U.S. attorney. I would read that one over and over again. My wife went to Plattsburgh.
Someone's commenting that?
Says Mario. Did she come back? That's a good question,
So we have people tuning in from West Virginia.
Someone says he's on top of the Empire State Building. Then he says no. Another one from a coast town in New Jersey. We have a beautiful beach too. You do? No, absolutely yes. Vice President, 15 votes for Matt Gaetz, 4 votes for Giuliani, 8 votes for Vivek.
Oh, so that's our friend Rob from Secaucus. We asked last time.
Rudy for AG.
You got Kerry Lake got 63 votes in our straw poll we did yesterday. Kerry Lake got 63. Byron Donalds got a number of votes. RFK got 39.
This guy,
Rob's got these.
There's a lady that's called from Queens, New York, who lives right next to where Donald J. Trump was raised and born. And I think that was in Jamaica Estates, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody from West Texas, somebody from Michigan. Ask Biden. One person said, ask Biden who he voted for.
Well, Mayor, we're well into soccer time. A busy hour and a half really is what we're pushing here. And I still feel like we didn't get to everything.
We didn't, but there is one last serious question we're going to finish with, Ted.
Yes, sir.
And that is Jill allowed to accompany him into the voting booth for fear that he might vote for Trump by mistake?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. How is that? Is that state by state? How does that work? Voting.
Well, it depends if the Democrats are controlling on.
Is someone usually allowed to?
No,
right? That would be very.
No.
What's the word?
That would be coercion, right?
That's
what about all those people? The guy with the report in Wisconsin, where the guy found all these people who were in the last stages of Alzheimer's who voted and couldn't remember.
I swear that happens in
And
Nevada.
a number
allowed to say
a number of their children were incensed.
Talk about ballot harvesting. Talk
Ballot
about what they do in
harvesting.
places like
They
Las
don't-
Vegas. Can't talk about it. I know. Can't question the elect. You cannot question the ruling regime. Heaven forbid you question what you saw. Right? They always ask mayor, what did the mayor believe this? Did the mayor believe that? And I've tried to make this point repeatedly. It really isn't about what you believe.
No,
is
no,
it?
I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only son. That, the credo in unum Deum patrum omnipotentem.
When it comes to the 2020 U.S. presidential election,
That's
it's
what I
not about
believe
what
in.
you
I
believe.
believe
It's
in
about what you
God.
know
I
and
believe
what
in-
you've been told.
I believe in God. The other things I know or I have evidence of.
Yes.
But
you're investigating.
Belief is a spiritual matter. Like people who believe in climate change. I don't believe in climate change. After the discussion I just had with Julie, I know that there's climate change. There's summer, there's fall, right? Right. There's winter and there's spring. Now, that doesn't show every place. Like when you get near the equator and you get all the way up to Antarctica there. But in most of the world, you get some kind of seasons, like in Washington and New York. And that's why they said climate change, because it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's a non sequitur. It doesn't mean anything. Do you believe in climate change? I say, absolutely. And then they look at me, what kind of conservative? I believe in the four seasons of Vivaldi. I mean, if there wasn't climate change, there wouldn't be the four seasons, one of my favorite pieces of music. Well, tomorrow we'll be back with you. We will see just exactly what we have to report that isn't being reported elsewhere and held back from you and covered up. And we will see if we can come to you with some inside information, because we got here in the middle of the day today, but we'll from New Jersey, from New Hampshire, and we'll see what surprises they have. What exactly do they indict Trump for tomorrow? I can assure you it won't be a crime. I represented him long enough to know he didn't commit a crime. But it'd be interesting to see what fiction they come up with, and how, with all the 70 counts, how they come up with something different. Or is it going to be like they have 17 counts and it all says the same thing? Probably going to be more like that. It's going to be more like that. And it's going to be, once again, penalizing him because he believes that and has reasonable support for the fact that they cheated and stole the election. And whether he's right or wrong, he's entitled to his belief, and he certainly is entitled to his right to say it. After all, this isn't Nazi Germany or communist Russia or present common day Red China, the biggest patron of Joe Biden. Well, thank you very much for being with us, and we'll be with you tomorrow night. Make sure you go on WABCRadio.com like Julie does at 3 tomorrow. And then back here tomorrow night on your favorite social media. God bless you. And of course, let's all say it together. God bless America. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to